The Word docs acknowledge that we are meeting today on the lands of the Kaurna people, and we recognise elders past and present. These lands have never been ceded.
Why don't you write when you don't need money, honey? That would certainly make a hit.
Welcome back to Word Docs, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Matthews, and I am here with Dr. Alex Vickery-Howe.
Hello.
And Dr. Sean Williams.
Hi, Amy. How are you feeling?
I feel good today. I'm the only one of us feeling good today. Last time we recorded, I was sick and Sean was sick, and today I'm well and Alex is sick and Sean is sick.
Hooray!
But at least
such
you're
a
here.
difference because we can see Amy smiling, whereas last week I just saw the eyes sort of at the bottom of my screen.
Yeah, I was lying on the couch and recording, whereas you guys both look reasonably chipper even if you're feeling rubbish.
Thanks, Amy. You're looking all rugged up, I guess, because
I
it's
am.
freezing cold.
It is so cold today. Anyway, so today I thought we would continue taking advice from other writers and editors, which, you know, doesn't always go well for us, but does lead to some good discussion. So today I've got Betsy Lerner, who I only heard about. She's been around forever, but I only heard about her this year, really. I don't know why. I think I was looking at stuff for our postgrads because we have so many brand new postgraduate students, and I was trying to look at ways to help them because often they come to you in a mess and you really have these moments of like, I don't know where to start. Like, I don't even know how to help you in this moment because the problems are often really complex. Like, are they structural problems? Are they research problems? Or are they something more? So I started reading this book, which is called The Forest for the Trees, which was first published in 2000. No, it might have been published before that and republished in 2000. So she was an editor for decades in New York. And she's written this book breaking writers down into like 6 different kinds of writers and the problems that they have. So her argument is that there's like the surface problem and then there's something deeper going on. And that in order to get the best work out of a writer, you need to be aware of what's going on underneath, which I thought was really wise. So her 6 kinds of writer are the ambivalent writer, the natural, the wicked child, the self-promoter, and I thought Alex would laugh at that. I feel like you're seeing yourself already, my friend. Number 5's the neurotic, and number 6 she calls touching fire, which is kind of an addictive personality. So I thought I might go through them one by one, and you can tell me what you recognise or give me your thoughts or experience on each one. Because being a supervisor is so much like being an editor, but more intense because you're with them every step of the way and you're really invested in them as human beings, right? Like you want them to be healthy, happy, and for their journey to be rewarding, not just for there to be an end product. So this appeals to me. So the first one's the ambivalent writer, and I recognise this one. So she says, do you have a new idea almost every day for a writing project? Do you start lots of things and never finish them? Do you skip from short stories to novels to screenplays to poems? Can you not settle on something? Ooh. Do you talk about your projects to everyone but you don't write very much? Uh-oh. And do you feel that you will someday wonder where the years went?
I recognise parts of that, definitely parts of that. You know, certainly the jumping from poem to screenplay to comic to, I mean, yes. Yes.
But what's interesting is some people do that well, right? They do all of it. Like I think about Larry McMurtry, who was a great novelist, short story writer and screenplay writer. And there are others. I'm sure we can think of many, many others. Yes. But she's really talking about a lack of focus here, and that's something I feel like we often see with postgraduate students early on in their degree is this struggle to snap things into focus. A lot of shifting of topics.
For the first projects. 6 months, easily, I think.
So what do you think underlies that? Like before I move on to what Betsy thinks, Word docs, how would you, if you had someone who came to you who was always shifting focus, what's your gut instinct about what's really going on there?
Is it a lack of confidence, do you think, Amy? Is it a sort of that sort of learned confidence that comes from settling on one or more thing and finishing them? So you get that awareness and again, confidence, that word, my internal thesaurus is not working. The awareness that you have the ability to finish something and then move on to the next phase. Do you think it's partly that? Because I think I was very scattered and starting and stopping lots of things in the early days of my writing career. And I only got over that by finishing more things and realising that was better. Than
just talking about it. I think there are some people, and I can be guilty of this, although I spend long hours writing as well. But there are some people that actually just enjoy talking about it more than actually doing it. Yeah, that just want to talk about it.
Because doing it is not always very much fun.
It's not very glamorous.
It's quite a slog often.
Yes.
Talking about it is way more fun.
I quite like that slog, and I don't mind not being glamorous. It suits me very well.
I don't talk about my work much, I have to say, so I don't think this one's that much me. But yeah, she talks about, I think you're onto something there, Sean. I think there's two things. One is this feeling like there's a perfect topic out there, or a perfect form, or a perfect, like, you'll eventually find the perfect thing and everything will click into place, where that's not really how it is. It really is just picking something and doing it to the end. And it doesn't have to be the perfect thing. You're just practicing and learning.
Yes. It's interesting you put it that way, because certainly when I was starting to be a writer and jumping from story to story, I was also absolutely hopeless at being in relationships. Because I think I was chasing the perfect thing.
The romantic dream.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, none of them were then working, because I would go, this isn't perfect. It's been 6 weeks and it's not perfect. Therefore,
the ambivalent Casanova.
So yeah.
Imagine that, the ambivalent Romeo, the ambivalent. You could do it with everything. Troy would have never fallen if he'd been ambivalent.
That's right. Amy, I think you've got your next novel right there.
There you go, done, the ambivalent lover. Well, she says also that it's about finding that thing that you have to express. So she says you have something to say, something you may feel desperate to express, but you have no idea how to go about it. So when you're working with these authors, it's about finding out, because the form is kind of often irrelevant, right? Like, I can look at my books and they're in different genres, but they're always actually, when I sit back and look at them, about the same things.
Yeah.
So whether they're romance or literary fiction or experimental short stories, they always come back to the same core focus, which is, for me, like family and human relationships, love, the mess of people I'm really interested in. And so she talks about how you have to get past the fact that writing is this love-hate relationship, that you're never going to be, like, passionate all the time, Casanova.
It's true.
You're going to be passionate on some days, and on other days you're like, yeah, you're all right.
You're all right.
You're all right. So she talks about how you have to get to the core value underneath, right? Like you do with marriage. Like, a long relationship is about more than passion on the day. It's about a shared sense of values and a shared vision for your life. So she talks about how you've got to find what that is. And so her recommendation is that you look at the pattern of your reading. Like, what do you read? What do you keep coming back to? Movies and TV too.
Yes.
So what would you guys notice if you had to look at the pattern of stories you consume?
I play a game with my imaginary friend Caleb, which is that when we see a title of a play or a novel or a movie, and we then tell each other what each other's version of that would be, which is lots of fun.
That's good. We could do that with each other.
Oh, we totally could by now, yeah. And it speaks to the sorts of issues you're talking about, what's really at the heart of someone.
So Alex's version of somebody else's bucket list would be, I don't know, they've stolen the list, they're working through it one by one, they destroy human civilization, and then tick that off.
That's right, a pandemic comes along. Okay, so...
That's interesting.
Sorry, Sean.
It is interesting. I've forgotten your question, Amy, but I enjoyed Alex's answer to it. Oh, that's right. It's about reading, isn't it?
It's about reading.
Yeah, what are you interested in?
Because I literally read this just a few days ago, and I was like, oh my God, we just had maybe 3 postgrad students in first year that we were having this exact conversation with, where they couldn't quite snap into focus. It's like, well, what are the texts that you're passionate about? because you always find why you want to write there, right? And so she talks about what's motivating you as well, and it might not be a positive thing. It might be a negative thing, like a fear of failure, which I think has always driven me.
Yes.
Like, I think I've always been terrified of not doing it, of failing at it.
Yes.
I think you can both say that's no longer a fear. I mean, it might be a fear, but it's no longer a objectively... it's not an objective concern because you haven't failed, you've succeeded.
Oh, but every book is
I've failed
another
heaps.
possibility for failing. Yeah, me too.
I've failed so many times.
But if you fail now, just bury that one book and just go, oh, remember the one before that? That one was pretty good.
Oh, Alex, that's not how it works. I wish it was like that.
Oh my God, young
That
Padawan,
was
you have so much to
be
learn.
affirming, but it didn't come down that way.
So the next bit I thought was really interesting because each chapter is really multi-layered. Like, she's talking about how complex people are. So she talks then about if you've dealt with their pattern, right? So if you're dealing with a writer as an editor or as a supervisor and they're frozen or they can't start or they keep restarting or every week they come to you with a new idea, like, I want to change ideas now. She's like, look at the pattern of reading, look at what might be motivating them. But then she also says that it's possible it's a form of self-protection, not doing it.
Yeah.
And I think we're quite used to perfectionists, for example, who can never quite complete things. But she said that then you need to honour that self-protection, right? That maybe they're not willing or ready or able to go to some of the places the work needs them to go.
Yes.
So she lists a few things that she says motivates people to write, and she recommends that you honour those impulses. So, and they're pretty extreme. They're things like exile, assimilation, redemption, destruction, revenge, love, that your urge to write is coming out of a pretty deep-seated psychological place. And so then it's quite risky that you're always dealing with a writer who's putting their psychological welfare at risk when they're really going there. Do you think that's true for you? Yeah, it was really intense.
Wow.
I thought it sort of has to be true to a point, because why else would you devote that many hours to something?
Yeah.
Yeah. And endure so many what's the word I'm looking?
Rejections.
Yeah,
Slings
rejections.
and arrows.
Yeah, slings and arrows is exactly the right phrase. Thank you, Amy. The lack of money, the endless crippling self-doubt, the lack of food, etc. Yeah, there's got to be something really deep driving.
She does talk later about money. Money
yeah, okay.
could be a good reason to do it.
I think I can guess which one that might be.
But she says chances are, if you want to write, it's because you're a haunted individual or a bothered individual because the world does not sit right with you or you in it.
Well, I think that registers,
Yeah, that really registers with me.
I'm not sure.
But don't you think we all feel a bit, I mean, most writers, not everyone, but most of us feel a bit exiled from the other humans, like
Oh, yeah.
a bit apart from.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah, there's another one, I can't remember which one it is, but she does talk about that too, that might be a strategy writers employ, like feeling other allows you to go, well, I'm going to go over here in my room and write.
Yes.
It's like a narcissistic kind of protection.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to set up a way of thinking about it that enables me to ignore everyone and go away by myself.
Yes. Amy, we should pay you for therapy. This session is really useful.
I'm totally unqualified, so
It's an interesting...
I would be disbarred.
It's a sort of double-edged sword, because I think you're right. I think we do exile ourselves in order to be apart from, and you know, we all have our offices and our secret lofts and all the rest of it. But also, there's this really strong desire to communicate. So it's a bit of a paradox in a way. You lock yourself away in a room in order to communicate.
Yeah, and also we keep part of our own minds away from everyone.
Yes, I think so.
I think I've said this before on the show, but it's really weird that by the time people have read your book, it's like 2 years ago or a year ago for you. And so you lived this whole life with these people that your dearest won't ever know about until 2 years afterwards, which is pretty weird.
That's right. Maybe what's happening here when you have the ambivalent writer is that those impulses are out of balance.
Yeah,
to a certain
maybe.
extent, or in the wrong order. Maybe some people want to connect before they've actually done the self-isolating part. or it's all jumbled up and happening in the wrong order at the wrong time, perhaps.
This does seem like one of those problems where it's about knowing yourself.
Yeah.
That it's taking the time to get to know yourself before you dive into the writing bit, maybe. I think this would be, for me, one of the hardest ones to deal with as an editor, because you can support people and you can ask them questions and you can guide them, but actually that's work you have to do on yourself, right? All of these are, really.
Well, ultimately, you can't lock them away and say, right, I'm not letting you out. I mean, you can, but you probably shouldn't.
I have known people who've done that.
I know someone in theatre who's done that, actually. Yeah, who's locked someone up.
Yeah.
No wonder drama got dragged over the coals a couple of years ago at Flinders.
Well, that can't go on the podcast, can it?
I'm sure it didn't happen at Flinders.
It's a free country.
At Redacted. We're not going to get through all these. Should I just do like 3 of them? Because we're like halfway through the show already.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, we could make it a multiple episode series. So
yes.
Yeah.
So, and people can let us know what they think about these if they recognise them. So the second one was the natural, and I may have recognised myself in this one.
I'd love to, but I just don't think I'm going to.
Can I read you this? Because I thought this was really funny, and I don't know if it's intentional or not.
Yeah.
I hope it's intentional, but if it's not, it's equally funny. Every now and then a writer comes along who people call the real thing, like the character Robert Redford portrays in the movie The Way We Were. So he was in The Natural. Like, is that deliberate? Is that deliberate, or is that a joke?
That would have to be a joke.
Have to be a joke, yeah. I'm sure.
No, because she goes on to discuss his character in The Way We Were.
It would have to be a
So
joke.
it might not be a joke.
Oh, wow.
It's very good either way. That made me laugh. But she talked about that, about how there's people who straight away, shine. They've got like this natural talent. I'm sounding like I'm big noting myself, but there's a catch to this. Like, I feel like writing always came very easily to me. That's why I recognise this. There is an organicness to it where I don't have to consciously think about it.
Yes.
So she talks about how anyone who's ever been in a creative writing program knows that we're not all created equal, and that some people just it comes easier than for other people. And then she says, and that is no predictor of success at all.
That's correct. Absolutely
In fact,
correct.
It often works against the people for whom it comes easily. Usually it's the people who have to work a bit harder and who aren't naturals who have success quicker.
And why is that, do you think?
Well, I think there's a few things. It is possible to have success really quickly. The other version of that is that you have, you sign a big deal for your first book and then you kind of disappear, because the most writers who are the wonderkins who come out of the gate with a giant advance with their first book disappear. You never hear from them again, or they do 2 or 3 kind of limp books afterwards. But most of them don't live up to that big first book.
And is that the pressure? Is that what is that?
She talks about that everything always came easily, so they don't necessarily have the grit and stamina when things don't come easily, and they tend to feel a bit hard done by. So she said, it doesn't matter whether it comes easily or not. The craft is not easy. So I say this to our students, particularly in the Bachelor of Creative Arts degree, which is like a hothouse workshop stream, that we know they have talent and we know they can write a sentence most of the time, but that's got nothing to do with writing a good story or a good novel. Like, it just, like, you can get away with a bit of gloss. Like, I felt like I could do that for quite a long time. I could fake my way through it, but it doesn't fake you towards novels, because novels are so complex. Like, you can't fake it, and gloss does nothing, really, when you get to the big structural work.
Even if you fake it and get lucky and get it right, you still don't know how you've done it. So
exactly,
replicating it becomes then incredibly difficult. And if something goes wrong with the next one, you don't know how you did the first one, so you don't know how to fix it. And
that's where you get second book syndrome, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so that's what I always tell my students too, that you've got to work, you've got to learn. What works now doesn't always work in the future. And, overnight success is wonderful and a really super thing that we all dream of, but it says nothing about your longevity as a career as a writer.
So it's sort of a trap in a way.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, there's pitfalls everywhere, but definitely. So she says that what you see with naturals is, this is a direct quote, they rail against those who have slammed the door in their face, believing themselves unworthy, take their marbles and go home. So they don't have grit, right? So when you get a no or a rejection, you either are like, those people are idiots. I hear this all the time. Oh my God, from unpublished novelists. The industry is full of idiots. All those editors are idiots. They don't know what they're doing. And then I think some of those writers, not all, but some go off into indie publishing and publish their own stuff thinking they'll show the idiots.
That doesn't work.
Right?
Yeah.
No.
And then the second group are the ones who are more emotionally vulnerable and are more likely to go, oh, well, I give up then. It's too hard.
And then that's the end.
So she talks about that natural talent can just be a double-edged sword.
We were talking... sorry. Amy, you go.
No, you go. No, you go.
Well, I was just going to say that poor long-suffering Alex has been not winning any of the prizes he's been shortlisted for. And it's been causing Alex...
so many
I've won 7. But
you've won 7. Oh my God!
We're not hearing about them
complaining.
But so I'm a judge for the Writers of the Future contest, which is a big international contest for amateur writers. And the running joke in that contest is that the people who win the first prize or the grand prize don't go on to have major careers. That's not always true. But the running joke is that it's the third prize winners like me and so many others that go, damn, we're not quite there yet. We have to keep working. We have to keep straining and striving. And we have to, like, our hunger isn't satisfied yet.
So that's what she's saying the ambivalent writers need to find.
Yes.
They need to find the thing that drives you to be like, I'm finishing this bastard of a thing and I'm entering that contest. And if you say no to me, I'm coming back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, right. And the same with the naturals. You need to find that. So she says natural ability doesn't make writing easier. And I think that's so true. And then she said that the key thing about being a writer is being able to tolerate the disappointments and rejections. So if you're a natural, I think what reading between the lines, what she's saying is that it becomes core to your identity, like a fixed trait.
Yes.
You know, when they talk about growth mindset now, they try and talk you away from fixed traits. Because then what you're doing is taking the rejection as a rejection of you rather than that piece of paper with the words on it.
Yes.
And I think that is the danger of being the natural, is tying it up with your identity, which I think I've done several times in my life.
Same. Yes, absolutely. That's a good one, Amy. That's the natural. Yes, that's the natural.
Yeah.
So do we have to aim to be unnatural writers?
But see if you recognise these. These are signs of natural. So the natural writer is the one who is always writing, if only in his head. Do you do that? Their head. Do you do that?
Yes.
I do that.
I used to do that a
putting
bit
it into
more.
words. Always trying
stop.
to think how I describe things, or how I'd put a person into words, or and also that they started young. That when you talk to the natural, they were writing very, very young.
Yes, absolutely. Grade 3 for me.
And so she said the one thing they have in common then is child writers have a need to validate their own experience and try and make sense of the world. And they often came from backgrounds where they needed to make sense of the world, where there was some kind of disjuncture, or they're like intellectually trying to puzzle their way through understanding the world that they're in. And I thought that was quite interesting too.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, they're driven to create no matter what.
Yep.
But, you know, they have to divorce their identity from it.
Yes.
So the last one we might do today, because I know Alex is hanging out for this one, is the wicked child.
The wicked only child, it should be.
So this is the controversial writer who exposes their family or their community, and you know these ones, the ones who tell it like it is. So and she says, let's face it, if in your writing you lift the veil on your family, your community, or even just yourself, someone will take offence. Now, I think about watch list and how many members of your family were, although your poor father was in an urn.
That's right.
On opening night, he was sitting right by it and he said to some complete stranger, "That's me."
That's my role. So she talks about going to this writing workshop with a very famous editor named Gordon Lish.
Gordon Lish, who famously edited Raymond Carver and butchered him against Carver's will, but made Carver famous.
Oh, wow.
There you go. Yeah. So Gordon Lish used to be really brutal, apparently.
Yes.
And he used to say, are you waiting for your parents to die before you write something worth reading?
Ooh, no. No, I'm already picking
No,
on
you're
that.
certainly not. You put your mother in everything.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Oh, he was an awful man.
But that's interesting because I know she won't mind me saying this, I don't think, but because she'd said it publicly in classes that Eva Hornung, who used to write as Eva Salas, who won the Prime Minister's Prize and the Vogel Award and other awards, she's the author of Dog Boy, if you want to go check out one of her books. But she
one of Australia's great writers.
Yeah, she had a book called Fire, which is published now, but she wrote it a long time before it was published, and it was kind of based on her quirky upbringing. And she let one of her siblings read it, and they said, you can't publish that.
Right.
You can't publish that until after our mother's gone.
Wow.
And she put it in a drawer, and she waited until their mother was no longer there because it would have caused such pain and hurt.
Wow.
Now, Gordon Lish would have been like, just hurt the motherfuckers.
Open the freaking drawer.
Just do it. Just
the ends justify the means. Slash, hack, hurt, harm.
So Betsy Lerner's saying that writers censor themselves for fear of what other people might feel or think. But what she noticed in her long career was that the writers who were confident, who would go out and write, were very secure in their family's love. That they knew their family would be able to either think, well, it's fiction, like that's what they do, they're writing fiction.
Yes.
Or to be able to forgive them for blurting it out. I have to say I have an aunt who, I can't remember what I was writing. I think I moved into contemporary again. It was when I sold the bucket list book. I was doing historicals. Everyone's safe when you're doing historicals, right? And I moved into contemporary, and she said one Christmas, oh no, now you're going to write all about us. And particularly my grandmother, who everyone's quite fascinated by. And this story is about a grandmother, so I'm going to catch it when I go to Christmas next time.
Do you think that will happen?
Maybe, possibly. But also I remember my mother used to, when I first started out, she doesn't do it anymore, but probably because I bend over backwards to make sure none of the mothers in books are anything like my mother.
Right.
So I am not following Gordon Lish's thing. Like, I'm not going to write about my family because I know it would cause immense pain. But what I can do is transform it into something different, right? Like, you can take elements of people and transform them into something completely different that allows you to tell the truth without having to hurt people, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting because what you said earlier, I knew, and I still know, that if I ever write about my parents, that's totally fine. I checked with them. I checked with my mother, and she was hilarious. She said, yes, I stand by every word of that, and I've got a few others for you as well. So I think I was very secure in that situation, and I would be moving forward. There are other people in my life, not so much immediate family, but other people I might find interesting, where I would give it a lot more pause and go, am I going to step, if I was to write, I don't know, there is a small part of me that would like to write about my working life more. And then I think, well, that's really going to put a cat in a hen house,
Are we in it?
Hey?
Are we in it?
Yeah,
Are we in it? Is it called The Naturals? It's about Amelia and Shane taking on the world as literary supergiants.
That could be a whole series.
It could.
But
I have to say I would
think
never write about my marriage because of my kids. I would never use the material from my marriage just because it would hurt my children.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yes, and I haven't written anything about a teen pregnancy for the same reason, that I don't want to offend my son or his mother. Their feelings really matter to me, and I feel this need to communicate that kind of stuff, but I haven't found a way yet to do it in a way that keeps those relationships safe.
That's interesting, because she says the wicked child is the family provocateur who blows the whistle on people in relationships. That they just go there. Whereas I think I have enough. I don't want to blow up those relationships.
No.
They're important to me. And I wouldn't like someone to do it to me either. Like Prince Harry.
God, like Prince Harry. And I guess we know there are enough ideas. If we have an idea that will blow up our relationship, we'll just come up with another one and not do the
I'd be more inclined to blow up something more systematic, like a pinnacle target, but I wouldn't necessarily go for a personal target, if that makes sense.
Because I think when she says every writer uses the people in their life because they're the experiences that you have, I think that's true.
Yes.
But you don't have to do a direct one-for-one.
No.
I think that's the line.
Although I would say that Mothering Watch List is pretty close. But she's quite an endearing character by the end. You've got to go through the whole thing.
Oh, I quite liked her at the beginning even. She had sass. She was good.
Yeah.
Jeanette Vickery, how approved that one.
What's that line about characters being like sausages? Nobody really knows what goes into them, and they're unrecognisable at the end. Some famous writer said that. Let's say
it's hard because Hemingway also said that you can't divorce a character from their context. So people come out of their context. So you can't. If you're going to put them into the sausage, you need to take some of their context with them for them to make sense. Yeah. Anyway, I think we're out of time, but that's been so interesting. We only got through 3 of them. So we did the ambivalent, the natural, and the wicked child, but we still have the self-promoter, the neurotic, and the addicts, the touching fire one to go.
I'm a bit scared of those.
And do them.
Touching fire, very strange.
Yes. Well, we'll have to do part 2. We've never done this before.
We'll come back and do part 2. I know.
It's a cliffhanger.
Well, we always say we will, but we... It's like a
innovating
hanging thing.
Maybe in 3 years' time we'll remember, did we ever do those other 3? Thank you,
but
Amy.
If you've recognised yourself, I think the key is we're all learning and growing, and you're not fixed in one of them. Like, you can have a thing. I really like this Miles Davis quote that keeps popping up on my Instagram this week. This is how deep my research was. But it takes a long time to sound like you.
Ooh, yeah, that's cool.
I like that. I think that's true.
Good line.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Miles. Thanks, lads. That was a good afternoon, and you did so well, even though you're sick. I've really
we haven't
enjoyed
face planted even once.
No, no coughing, no sneezing, only minor brain fog. It's
only minor.
Well,
anyway,
I look forward to resuming this.
Yes, I've got my notes, so we can come straight back to it. Anyway, what do we say now, Alex?
Happy writing.
Happy writing.
Happy writing.
See ya.
Why don't you write when you don't need money? All your notes sound alike too much. All of them start with I love you, honey, but they end with the same old touch. Just for a change, send a nice loving letter and cut out that please remit. Why don't you write when you don't need money, honey? That would certainly make a hit.
Do we have anything funny for the end, or do we need to make up something funny now?
Sean, put your pants back on. Quickly, put your pants back on.
Well, I think that was it. That was the funny thing.
Yeah, there you go. Done. Tick.